Greetings and welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions 7 days a week. And you know what, Bill? Let's get this party started.
Absolutely. Our first question this morning comes in from Lois Richter in Davis, California. And Lois wonders, what is your favorite free or cheap audio editing program for a Mac? I currently use and enjoy Amadeus, she notes.
Ronnie?
Yeah, I've been using different types of audio DAWs up through the years. I remember back in the days when I used Reaper. Reaper has now gone purchasing license, the purchasing license route, and another one that has been really popular was Audacity. But the last 2 years, I tend to go to my favorite video editor, which is DaVinci. We have the studio version, of course. So DaVinci Resolve has an excellent audio editor, and if you're doing video at the same time, that's a no-brainer, in my opinion. And there is no good reason why you should not learn to use DaVinci Resolve for editing audio as well, because you probably would like to do that in the future. So I would go with Audacity if you don't have any Adobe or other licensing schemes that you're a part of. So Audacity or the free version of DaVinci Resolve is my 2 cents.
Bill?
Those are great suggestions, and we know a lot of people who are using both of those. I do all my audio editing in the audio module in Final Cut just because it's a subset of Logic code. I do know a few editors who edit all of their kind of podcast-style audio in Logic, but it's generally a bigger program. Audacity, we hear a lot in the free space. There are a couple others. Reaper is mentioned a lot in the audiobook community, and I think there's a whole bunch of audio editing programs, both built into larger suites and standalones. So if you're looking for some suggestions, particularly depending on your skill level, if you're at a medium skill level, some of these are very complex when you get into the big programs, and they have a lot of facility that you may not want. So just get into the community that is most like with the kind of work you do and ask around. You'll get a lot of great suggestions.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I think from a free or NAGware perspective, Reaper, and Nikki has suggested it as well, Reaper is probably the most powerful, the most number of features you're going to get without having to pay for something outright. If you are going to, if you think you're going to go back into video at some point, I do agree that Resolve is something I would consider. It's a lot heavier from that perspective, but you'll have a lot of video tools as well.
Next question.
Danny Grizzle, in Longview, Texas says, for 32-bit body pack recorders, what would your top 3 recommended lavaliers be?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, I'd probably start with the Sanken COS 11, which you can get wired, I guess, depending upon what kind of recorder you have. You can get wired with mini plugs on them, TRS 1/8-inch plugs on them. They're tiny. The nice thing about the the COS 11 is it's muy tiny, and it's easy to hide underneath clothing if you're trying to use a concealed body pack and recorder. But they sound good with a tie clip on the front of them. My second suggestion would probably be, I like Tram microphones because I'm old school, and I was one of the first people to use them in production because they're a flat. They're kind of omnidirectional or side addressed too. They have the capsule faces this way, and they're flat. And a lot of times they have these vampire clips, which you clip them into, and they have little teeth on the back of them. That's why they call them vampire clips. And they attach easily without the typical tie clip like you see here. So they get attached to anyone's clothing who's not wearing a tie or a coat. So that comes in handy. And they give a pretty decent sound. And a lot of times you can mount them so that the element is facing back toward the inside of the clamp. And that causes a gap between the back of the clamp and the face of the microphone, and it protects it from clothing noise. That's why it's kind of nice to use. And my third up, what I guess is the Sony Sennheiser MK2 lavalier would probably be my third choice. I don't have a picture of it, but it's there's a 2 and a 2E, the more expensive one of the two.
Go ahead, Bill.
I think he's talking about the MKE2, which I have a lot of. I have MKE2s and MKEs. They're MKs. They're slightly different in terms of their sensitivity. And the thing about lavaliers for me is that sometimes that reach and sensitivity can be really good. Sometimes it can be a little hindrance. And I ran across that a lot when I was trying to match it to overhead boom mics. When I was having people shoot double system, we'd put a lav on them. We'd also fly a boom over the top of them. And for the high-end booms, the MKE2 is a better match. I started with Sony ECM 77s and ECM 99s. I can't remember the second number, but the more sensitive matched the booms a lot better, and the less sensitive got you less background noise to fight in post. So you'd pick the lavalier depending on whether or not you're in a noisy or a not noisy environment, and predominantly whether you want to hide the mic or not. I mean, obviously, if you're doing a Western, they didn't have lavaliers in the Wild West, so you want to hide every lavalier and not have it be overt. If you're recording speakers, you're not constrained to that, so you can put it on a lapel and have it be visible, and nobody thinks twice about it. In fact, we are seeing so many YouTube influencers take those little DJI mics and stuff like that, and rather than even clipping them on, they're holding them right in front of themselves. It's a look. I don't think it's a particularly smart one because those are not designed to be 1 inch from your mouth. They're designed to be on the chest, and lavaliers typically were profiled to do that function. But that's my first choice. Does it need to be hidden or not? Do I need a lot of clip options? Like Courtney was saying, those trams are fabulous if you have to hide them behind a tie or something like that. There's just a whole bunch of varieties. Those would be my biggest choices. I've used mostly, I've used Sankens, I've used trams, I've used Sony, and I've used all the Sennheiser series, and they're all do a good job. They're just all slightly different.
And Ronnie.
Yes, if I just could unmute. I had to agree with everything said. The COS 11 from Sanken is really good. But lately I've maybe because I'm getting older, I tend to like the MKE 1 from Sennheiser a little bit more. It's a little bit warmer, I think. It's of course, this is all about how you kind of feel the sound is coming through. It is a little bit sensitive as well. So even if I have people speaking very low, of course, in a soundproof studio would be rather a good idea. And I feel the MKE ones are giving me more fullness of the audio compared to a lot of the other ones that I've tried. And of course, there's also a company called DPA, which has a big plethora of different type of microphones. And they relaunched a lot of their microphones with the new, so previously they had this dot connector that could be a little bit worrying. After some time it could make some noise, but the new one we have tested it on trade shows, and it's kind of a feather or spring-loaded pin that goes into the adjacent parts in the plug adapter, which is a much better design. So make sure if you get a DPA, get the newer ones with the new connections for the dot. So that's
And Alex, to round us out.
Yeah, and Mickey just listed it off: a COS 11, DPA 6060, and a Countryman B3.
Next question.
Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada says thoughts on the lower profile Blackmagic design product updates and new releases, new format, cross converter, and the camera output to cloud and so forth.
Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, obviously the Pixis takes a lot of the attention. So for me, I'm really looking closely at the new IP systems, the 2110s. And so I haven't made the jump off yet to this whole system, but it's starting to look more and more interesting. The one that catches my eye is this 812G SFP converter. So the thought of taking a bunch of cameras over, an IP system, using it paired with an Ethernet switch. So you're starting to build out this ecosystem, right? And so you can use deck links for capture cards and then use Cloud Store Minis. So essentially, if you can kind of stack these products together, you could have a cloud-based recording system locally on M.2 series drives, right? And that speed of high quality recording over a network-based system is really enticing and really interesting compared to switching out cards and building a card-based system, which is what my system currently has right now. So lots of good things from Blackmagic.
Alex?
Yeah, I think that the and we'll talk about this a little bit in a second, but I think that the camera to cloud stuff is now starting to get pretty interesting as far as what they're doing there. We've been testing the 2110 solutions, and they are rock solid so far. So we've been testing the 3x3s with the 360 router, and just using Ethernet is pretty cool. so having just plumbing in SDI and pulling it out, and I think that we're going to see more of that. Obviously, the Pixis is interesting. I think that it's going to, they released a lot of things, but I think that the sleeper is going to be the ATEM in the cloud. I think that it seems like they almost just kind of ran over that and then just kept going, and then they also, the other thing that was kind of a little bit of a sleeper inside of the Resolve thing is that you can use environmental lighting, HDRs, to light your 3D objects inside of Fusion. And they just kind of said it because I don't think they really know, that's a big deal. To be able to just throw that into render. It means that you can go out with a little like a theta and capture 9 exposures of an environment you want to put your object into, build that into an HDR, and then load that into Resolve to light an object it's going to be able to take on much more of a realistic lighting because it has all that extra light information. And so it's something we've been using for 25 years. It's just not something that you see in a compositor very often. And so for them they just kind of offhanded it. And then you can light your objects with HDRs and they moved on to the next thing. So that'll be an interesting video to do soon.
And Courtney?
Yeah, I haven't tested them. The new Blackmagic, they look pretty much the same. I was looking at them. They do have 2 SDI outs on their up-down cross converter now, the mini HD converter. So you can use it like a little DA, which is one of the things I liked about of course, our favorite, the MDHX, because it has it's an up-down cross converter, and it has multiple SDI outputs so that you can use it kind of like a DA as well. I did stumble across this, which is pretty new and interesting. I don't think it's a cross converter, but it's a SDI to HDMI. But the interesting thing is it has a built-in screen. So it would be great for troubleshooting because you see an image on the screen and it's tiny and it's only $200. So that is the Lumentek, LUMANTEK converter. It'd be interesting to try that. My main criticism of the Blackmagic in the past, I don't know whether they fixed this, it wouldn't do frame rate conversion. So whatever frame rate coming in would be on your HDMI, would be the frame rate going out, or SDI would be the frame rate going out. So you couldn't convert between 24p and, let's say, 5994 I or P going out. So it would keep the same frame rate conversion, so it wouldn't resample a frame rate. But maybe they've changed that.
And remember, your questions drive this show. So you want to go ahead and use Mukana to ask, to chat, to converse with each other. And if you need access to Mukana, go to officehours.global/join. That will give you access to Mukana, Discord, and so much more. Next question.
Next question comes to us from Noah Sargent here on the panel from Fullerton, California. Has anyone gotten their hands on the Blackmagic Cloud Store Mini series? I'd love to hear if it's being utilized and if live editing while recording is possible.
Alex?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be possible. I mean, once you're starting to talk about cloud infrastructure, I think that it's going to be, if you're talking about the Mini in the cloud, I think that there's not any reason why you won't be able to, assuming you allocate the right resources for it, or they allocate the right resources. I think they're still trying to figure out cost structure and so on and so forth of what that's going to actually look like. There are rumors that it's not going to be limited to 4-in, over time. So it could get to be a much larger thing. In many cases, there are times when we just need to switch a couple things, throw a bug over something, switch between remote feeds. But I'm going to guess that Blackmagic's vision for this is probably a little bigger than utilitarian.
Next question.
Matthew LeCount in Oakland, California, live streamed a show at 1080 5994 and also recorded in camera. Audio was recorded in camera and on a MixPre, both at 48 kilohertz. There is serious drift between the video and audio, even in camera. How would you tackle this?
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. How I tackle it ahead of time would be, were you providing reference to the camera and to the and to the MixPre, but if outside of that, with what you have right now, I guess the first question would be, what did you record into? Was you recording ProRes, or were you recording some kind of? It might be 1080 5994, but if you're recording H.264, you may have trouble. So if you're recording, I don't think I've ever seen it slide when I'm recording ProRes, unless something went wrong with the record. So, so ProRes has been something that if I'm recording to ProRes from my camera, I don't expect it to have any issue. If you're recording in some kind of H.264 MP4 wrapper from a Sony or from something else, and you didn't put audio in with it, I don't know how to fix that, to be honest with you. You'd probably have to start looking at where it's drifting the most, and it's going to be a lot of surgery, to try to pull it back together. I don't record anything that matters in less than ProRes LT, and usually I'm recording 422 or HQ so I can make some color correction. But I don't, if it matters, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to get those drives to do that, because recording to H.264 puts you in a place, or MP4s, or what a lot of these other cameras do internally. Blackmagic usually makes that available to do that. And if not, usually I recommend getting a monitor and taking the SDI out and recording it on that monitor. So it's a $500 upgrade to your current camera to do to either Atomos or Blackmagic or other things to make sure that you're recording, as Chris Sabato said, at a constant bit rate.
Courtney?
And where are you seeing this drift? Are you seeing a drift in time code? Were you feeding time code to the camera and the recorder? And did you have the same time code rate set for both? That could be where you're seeing the drift. And if you're recording on the MixPre, check the time code settings on that if you're feeding it time code, because it may be looking for drop frame time code, or you had non-drop frame time code. If you're recording at 5994, remember that's not real time. So, but it normally records at 48 kilohertz. You didn't say what kind of camera you were using too. So it may be that confusion there, because there's pull up, pull down with time code, and 5994, which is the broadcast standard, is not real time. So that may be why you're seeing the drift. You may need to pull it down 0.1% to get it back in sync again on your audio.
And there is a lot of good feedback in the comments here for you too as well, Matthew. So Roscoe mentions that Final Cut Pro 7 has a fix for drifting sync for Canon XL1 cameras. Mickey says there's definitely an AV drift in camera recording on Blackmagic cameras, especially the Ursas. So if you want to go back into the chat and continue the conversation, that'll be extremely helpful for you as well. Next question.
Noah Sargent's back again from Fullerton and on the panel. I heard recently that live streaming on YouTube monetizes around 3 times compared to the same content in video form. Is this your experience, and how could we verify?
Noah, you want to give a little more to that? Is that something you're looking to experiment with?
Yeah, I just heard through the grapevine of folks who are producing content that, when they're live streaming from a, ads perspective from YouTube, it seems like they're able to make more revenue from those ads on a live format versus a pre-recorded video format. Obviously with live, you have a little bit more real time, right? There's probably a little bit more gaps versus the video. So I'm wondering if that's the only variable that's different, or if YouTube treats content that's live differently, right? From a monetary perspective. Obviously we know it drives more eyeballs because people love the live interaction and being a part of something that's streaming like that. But just curious if anybody else has something similar to add to that.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah, so it does. I don't know if I can get into the details of how I know that, but you absolutely get a higher monetization with live than you do with VOD, because YouTube gets a higher monetization with live than with VOD, and it is and the higher quality video, the longer the average view time is. That's a known thing. So it's not just having live video; it's having higher. So this underlines all the things that we've talked about, related to these things. Where you are, if you're doing a live show, you want to do it at a high, if you have higher resolution. The bit depth doesn't matter as much. HDR, a lot of people aren't using it, but if you're getting better audio, if you're getting higher frame rates, if you're getting, so those types of things. So I think that those are 4K 60 is a pretty good format, but even 1080p 60 definitely makes a difference over lower frame rates.
Is there anything too with like the consistency? Because it is not just doing a live, but these are people who are potentially coming live twice a week.
I think that the thing is, if you're doing it over and over and again, you're just getting a larger number of people that are going there expecting it. So I don't think it affects the monetization, but it does affect how many people are there and how long they stay. And so that does affect monetization, but doesn't affect it. I don't think YouTube's changing the number for you, but you're going to have a better chance of having more people there if you're doing it repeatedly. I mean, live is something that does better when you do it regularly, as opposed to when you do a one-off.
Right. Courtney?
I have a question, because I don't know how this works necessarily, is when you're doing a live YouTube stream, how do they monetize it? Where do they insert the commercials if it's a live stream?
Yeah, I believe that they just punch them over top when you do it. We don't have ours turned on because I don't want to do that. But I believe that the ads are just punched right into the live stream. Yeah,
so you'd lose content, or it would kind of interrupt the flow of the live stream.
Yeah, I have to look at. I think that there may be a I know this data, but I haven't used it as much, because usually when I'm doing stuff, I don't put ads in them. So I don't. I think that there's an insert ad tool that is available in the back end. So
you actually pause the live stream for commercial announcement or something.
Yeah, usually people don't do it that way with live. They just kind of give you something that's a little less important and run over it. Because I don't know how precise that drop in is. I don't think they can insert it the same way we do with broadcast.
Got it.
Sounds like it's a good time to bring Renee back with all these.
Yeah. We'll do it. That's not a change. It's been around for a long time. But I'll see if I can. I'll dig a little bit, see if we can't get more information about that.
Awesome. Next question.
Craig Kadoki's up next from Toronto, Canada, with shortcuts on iOS or indeed macOS. Is there such a thing as a long press that can add a second action?
Jason?
Yeah, there absolutely is a long press. Let's go to 5 here. So here's my iPhone, and yeah, you can long press. And I think this has been everything since iPhone 10. You can just leave your finger on. It used to be that there was a flex. The screen would flex and it would measure. So that was a hard press. You don't have to push hard anymore. It's just a matter of just leaving your thumb where it is, and that will just trigger the secondary context menu.
Bill?
Oops, I'm sorry. If you want more information on that, if you go to developer.apple.com, you get into the entire WebKit JS and the rest of that, and they have a whole section on touch, and it tells you what it can and can't do, and actually how to program it in should you wish to. So whenever I've gone to the developer content meeting, the developer conference, I've always been fascinated. I'm not a programmer, but I just think it's really amazing what the back end can do. And so there's documentation for all of that available online for anybody who wants it.
Awesome. Next question.
Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia. Liberty, good to see you in a hosting chair. Please share a woman AI tidbit.
Oh, see what happens when I said to the folks in the back, and I was like, I actually like just being a panelist, because I did not read ahead.
It's restful, isn't it?
Right, to see this question for me. But a women in AI tidbit. Well, the numbers are thankfully beginning to change last year when we were just starting to do a lot more programming, we were looking at roughly 22% of women in professional careers across the globe. So that number is shifting as we see more training, more upskilling, more advocacy taking place as well. So there, from a statistical data perspective, what I like to share a lot is just like what we do here on Office Hours is for women, if you're thinking about doing more in this space, is to set a regular schedule for yourself, just like you would go to the gym, whether that be you'll get a set of podcasts or YouTubers that you may listen to 15 minutes a day or pick certain days a week. Just we're very tactical and practical in that regards, because that just helps you with your muscle memory, and so that it's not something that you're striving to do, but like James Clear in Atomic Habits, where you pair it with something so that it becomes a part of your everyday routine. But we'll be talking more about that this week on Conversations with Tony Mobley. So thanks for the question. Next question.
Next question is from Ron Kostiak in Toronto, and he has one for me. Bill, tell us the story of fixing/replacing your camera.
Go ahead, Bill.
It's a tale of sadness and woe. So, most of you know I've been on a Blackmagic Pocket 6K for a long time, and so I've used it over and over again, show after show. I used to have it switched into switch on, switch off when I did the show every day. But at some point, I was working around behind my desk, and I think I probably took it off the switch and just plugged it in, which left it running for a long time. Usually that's not a problem. I've had cameras all my whole life, and some of them don't mind being left on tremendous amounts of time, and others do. I'm not directly correlating that to the problem that I had. I'm just saying that at some point, the fan failed. And these big sensors require a lot of heat dissipation and fans to maintain their operation for a long time. So my camera failed. I started getting an anomaly, and I think it was just the sensor overheating because the fan was off. So I packed it up. I called Blackmagic, got a return authorization, and I sent it in to them. And the camera went off. The camera came back after about, I think it was 7 to 10 days. I plugged it in. Everything looked fine. I started using it for the first show, but it kept throwing errors. And I went, dear. Now, CJ of our crew, thank you, CJ, had a Blackmagic 6K that he wasn't using, so he sent it to me. So that's the camera you're seeing me through now, because when I called back to Blackmagic about do I need to send it back in, they said based on what was going on, I think sadly this camera is no longer. So I find myself in a need for a new camera. I'm doing a lot of research right now. CJ was kind enough to say, yeah, keep using my 6K while you look for something else. And it's tough right now because there's so many options. When we started this show 4 years ago, Blackmagic 6K was one of the premier processes for getting a camera on that could be shaded, and you could make sure that your color was adjustable and things like that. It's served really well. 4 years for a $2,000 purchase or a $3,000 purchase, I think at the time, I consider perfectly reasonable investment. But now I'm looking out there, and we've got webcams that are better. We've got the little pan tilt zoom things like the OBS bots. We've got the color science that Blackmagic was developed, but Sony has also come along and made tremendous leaps in the looks of their camera. So I'm literally trying to take some time to look around and say, what's next? What's the smart investment for me? I'm looking at the fact that I own Canon glass, and I like the lens you're seeing me through now, which is I think a 1734L series Canon still camera lens, but it's really a lovely picture. Do I want to, I'm thinking, do I go Sony because I really like their color science and then use a camera lens adapter and use the glass I have? Do I sell the Canon glass and move to the newer glass? Or do I take a shift and think about the two more modern solutions, which are one of those pan tilt zoom kind of cameras, which I don't have lens control over? Or do I think about maybe iPhone camera? Because the camera section of that is coming along so fast, and I've seen people hop into our show on iPhones and they look great. And I've got a couple of every time I redo my iPhone, I tend to keep the old ones because I use them for other things. So I'm in a quandary. I'm still trying to figure out which way am I going to jump. I've never had more choice, and I've never been less sure of what exactly the right move to make is. So anybody has any suggestions, put them in Discord, and I'll read through them after the show. And thank you for carrying it all. Okay, too long a story.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, you're in the best place to figure out what kind of device.
I have so many experts. So many really good pieces of advice coming in from all sides, and I encourage more, and I'll eventually tell you what I choose when I choose.
Awesome. And for those of you who are watching and you are maybe watching the replay, head over to askofficehours.global where you can submit your questions anytime 24/7. And then our great panel will be able to respond to those questions. No sign up necessary. Fast, easy. Askofficehours.global. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Douglas Carmichael. Douglas says, do you think Blackmagic Design will ever introduce direct 2110 I/O to the ATEM?
Ronnie?
I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I'm really looking forward to it. And when you look at everything they are doing and has been doing for the last 24 months, moving more and more of their products and even some new concepts into the 2110 area or domain, I would be really surprised. But for everything, you have to wait until Blackmagic releases something to be sure. This NAB, they released new stuff that we haven't even think of being needed, and when they released it, we see that, oh, that's cool, we need that. So I think the adult answer to this would be we have to wait, but I'm pretty sure we are going into more and more 2110, even maybe in the cloud.
Noah?
Yeah, I definitely think eventually they will. The problem is mixing formats between SDI and 2110. So my understanding, at least right now, is there's still a bit of latency that gets introduced with 2110. And so if you have two different speeds, essentially coming into camera, like a 3-frame difference or a 5-frame difference, you're going to definitely see that in a formatting issue. And so if the hardware is able to RAM up, right, and have some sort of buffer, so that way they could resync the SDI to 2110, right, which would ultimately mean you're delaying your live video, and resync it with a 2110, that could be an option. But I know that's a lot of processing and heavy lifting from a delay standpoint. And then ultimately, for what we do, if we're live, especially with iMag or any sort of video presence in room, that's going to be a little tougher for 2110. So there's still a purpose to SDI versus the 2110 system. Obviously, a lot of us are moving towards that cloud infrastructure and going digital with that video system. But for mixing formats, I don't know. But I think eventually, yes, there'll probably will be some sort of hardware that will have it.
And Jason?
I think with the release of the ATEM in the cloud, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when, just straight away, because that, if you think about it, a web-based switcher is in some ways kind of a 2110 switcher.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Danny Grizzle in Longview, Texas. Inc. magazine offered advice from entrepreneurs. One said, change banks every 5 years. No matter how well you do, someone will remember your original line of credit. Has your past held you back, and how do you make quantum leaps in your career?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, I guess it depends on whether you have a checkered past or not. That could be a problem. I've changed hats 3 times in my career, from sound mixer to video engineer, a 24-frame video engineer, to teleprompter operator and teleprompter service owner. The problem is people remember you especially in production, where you're hired. If you're not a company yourself, or a company known for a specific product or service, if you're a freelancer and you're out there, you get put into people's Rolodexes or contact lists as a certain person that does sound, let's say. And then when you're trying to pursue another career, even at the same time, you want to branch out to be a cameraman, let's say, or in my case, a video engineer. Well, The problem is I was in everyone's contact list as a sound mixer, and then when I was trying to get 24-frame video jobs, they would go, "That guy's a sound mixer, isn't he?" Yeah. So you go lower on their list because they like to work with the people that are they know in a specific category. So whenever you try and change categories or change hats midstream, your past can be detrimental to your work in the future simply because people don't realize that maybe you can do the new thing better than you did the old thing, but they don't know that because you've been pigeonholed.
Go ahead, Alex.
That is the craziest idea I've ever heard. Like maybe not ever heard. I mean, there's crazier ideas. What we want to do is watch the news, but there is. So when you're doing a business, everything's about relationships. And you want to build those relationships over long periods of time. And if you want a transactional relationship with your bank, then switch every 5 years. That's not the relationship you want if you're building a business. If you care about your line of credit, that is something you build with your business with one bank for 20 years. Like you don't do it like, oh, I'm just going to open up a line of credit and da 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 da. And they don't remember. You have to remember that the bank wants to give you more credit. If they're they make money on credit. So they want to give you the credit. They want you to roll it over. They want you to do all those things. And so they're not going to sit there and go, well, I don't know if we can trust you with that or not. I mean, they do have a lot of information about where you're at right now, but they're going to increase that line of credit when they can and when it makes the most sense. And when you have, and you can go, and then you go back to them, so you want to build that relationship. And the thing that I wasn't very good at is knowing how much the bank wanted you to succeed. So I thought when I got into trouble with my company, I was like, oh no, the bank's going to close us down. The bank doesn't want to close you down. They don't make any money on a closed company. Like they want to figure out like, how do we get you through this? And how do we work all these things out? And how do we, so I think that you want to have a bank that you build a relationship with. You want to talk to them often. You want to show them what you're working on. I mean, we did some of that, but when I talk to people who really had a great relationship with their bank or have one, one of the things that when you first do a line of credit, they want you to put collateral down, oftentimes personal collateral, which is something you do want to try to avoid. But the better thing to do is to, when I first looked at a line of credit, I was like, I asked for, I needed like anything less than $50,000. I was like, I'm not ever going to use it, because I'm turning $500,000 a month. Like $50,000 doesn't mean anything to me. But the right answer would have been take a 5,000 or 10,000 line of credit and start rolling it. Just start using it and rolling it, and using it and rolling it, and then they'll give you a bigger one. And I have friends that have built up millions of dollars of lines of credit that way over many years. But if you switch every 5 years, you can't do those kinds of things because you're not building up. Again, you're also not building up a relationship with them. They haven't seen you grow from X to Z, or A to Z or whatever that is. But it's all about having relationships with all of your vendors. Like you want to have a relationship along, if you're able to maintain a good relationship, you want a relationship with all the vendors that you have there, and you want to be careful of all those relationships, because when the chips are down, that's how you get out of it. Is when people make exceptions. They're not looking at a piece of paper. They're looking at a person. And I know you don't think that when you're doing it. You think they're just going to look at this piece of paper, but that's not. If you build those relationships, there's an amazing number of exceptions. Ask me how I know that can be done. When push comes to shove. And so I just think that is Inc. magazine is kind of known for saying things that are just written by people who have never actually owned a business. Inc. magazine is written by, they're a bunch of writers and they come up with these, goofy ideas and then they write them down. But you shouldn't take anything that they say seriously.
Go ahead, Bill.
To me, it depends on your focus. What is are you focused on growth? If so, go for it. Whether or not you change or you establish the relationship, banking has become less retail and harder to negotiate in my experience. Used to be you'd go into the bank manager of the local branch and it was somebody who'd been around for 25 years and knew the people, the connections, the advice to give you. You walk into the standard retail bank now, and the manager of that branch is likely to be a 26-year-old woman who is incredibly good, but doesn't have that huge. I mean, it's just a retail storefront now as opposed to the financial hub of the community. And most of the financial hub, in my experience, has gone into more niche-y kind of thing. So if you can find a person to grow with you and a banker, I agree with Alex's advice 150%. Hold on to those relationships, groom those relationships, let them get to know you. And even if you stumble, they will try to help you get past that because they basically know your quality as an operator. That was the other word I was going to say. At growth operators, people who can take a company from one size to the next size are highly prized, but there comes a point where the business is kind of maximized and they move from that orientation of growth as their primary driver to operations. It's just running the system efficiently. And they even sometimes change upper management or middle management to reflect that change. Instead of growing, we're going to try to operate now profitably and efficiently and watch for the leaks in money and things like that. So if you're in growth mode, pay attention to growth. If you're not, pay attention to operations. You need to do both, and you need to do them consistently over time. And if you do those things over time and you have a good product or service, you'll understand the rest of this as you go, and you'll find people to help you. That's my 2 cents.
Jason?
Yeah, I've had the same bank, both my personal and corporate accounts for 25 years. And, even if the bank manager changes out, the metadata of having a really long-standing account does mean something. What does it mean? Well, I mean, I don't know. I'll admit I don't have a home loan, but I'm pretty sure they would be more inclined to give me a home loan with 25 years of history as opposed to none.
Yeah, and just coming into the chat here, Danny also says, I think there's something to be said for regional banks versus the big national players, which is very accurate. Roscoe mentions that's why I like Shark Tank, as they consider the person as much as they do the business plan. And I'll just add to what Courtney had said, because it sounds like this question almost had 2 parts to it as well, like starting out by just talking about the entrepreneur, the business, and a lot of great feedback has been given about staying at a bank. I've been at my bank for nearly 20 years, both personal as well as from a business perspective. But I want to tap into, as Courtney shared too, has your past ever held you back, and how do you make that quantum leap? And we had this conversation in after hours yesterday, actually. Hasma had asked me some time ago about just doing more AI and how did I make that transition. And while a lot of people still content and marketing, and that's still very much a part of my wheelhouse, making that shift so that people would look at it, looking at the work that we do for training and programming, those things. Sometimes if you want to make that quantum leap in your career, you may need to go outside of your community and find that community where there are people who are actively doing those things at an accelerated pace, so that you, one, not only be able to level up your skills, but then also the association that comes with it, so that now you're in rooms with people who are, so when they're looking for, and I'll just stick to the AI conversation, but when they're looking for speakers or they're looking for trainers, that now my name is coming up, your name is coming up. I was very intentional last year that I did a lot of speaking, did a lot of events. That's why I wasn't hosting here as much, but I was out in San Francisco a lot, and a lot with the Women in XAI group community out there. And from being in those spaces, that has also helped to position me in other areas as well. So sometimes it's important to ensure that maybe the pond that you're in right now, that you need to go find a lake, and it might take you a little bit to paddle and to figure some things out. But if you are trying to make, especially an identity and a brand shift, because people, they'll remember you for what you used to do. And if you're charting new waters, that it's, just really important that you also learn to say no. So while it might be convenient to do the things that you used to do, that you say no and really, really forge ahead with the projects and the work that you're doing. And I'll wrap with this, that the nature of work is always also changing. So relationships, as Courtney, as Alex, as everyone has said, is everything. So don't lose sight of that as well. Alex?
Yeah, and the core of those relationships is execution. So just really think about how the way that, and every time from the time, and this is when I'm hiring out to a team or people or individuals or whatever, the speed at which you're responding, the quality of that response, the predictability of that response, and then on site, the ability to, just how do I feel like I can leave you alone with the client? Do I feel like I can leave you alone? Will you be appropriate? Will you try to, cross sell? Will you try to do, like there's a whole bunch of things that, and for clients, it's knowing that when they're talking to me, everything, I tell them what they need to watch for, but I don't encumber them with all of the things that could go wrong. I'm fixing those things. If they're doing something that I think is getting close to sharp edges, I tell them. But the idea is they should leave like, wow, that was easy, and we go through the hard stuff to make sure that they don't feel it.
Next question.
Zach Stallsmith up next from Chautauqua, New York. I know I asked this previously, but funding was just approved to make the purchase. Would this assisted listening device system, and he's got a link there, be fine to incorporate into my Dante ecosystem, or should I go with the analog RCA model instead?
Ronnie?
Yeah, since you already have some infrastructure for Dante, I would see no reason. This is the device, by the way. I would see no reason of choosing to go the analog route. Dante is the way forward, and as you can see, you can connect it to the Dante network separately from the Ethernet switch, and on the Ethernet switch, you of course have some access points which your users or listeners out in the room can listen to everything that is going into these Dante channels. Another thing that is also easy is to just change the configuration using your Dante controller, so you can put either one. And if you increase the number of units as time go by, you can add even more languages or more type of audio into this device. We use a similar system from Sennheiser for those that need a little bit more advanced system, which is called Mobile Connect. They are based on the same principle. They both have 2 channels. They both have a mobile app they can connect to the Wi-Fi or the network. The thing that is different with the Sennheiser one is that I can actually also have 2-way audio coming in from the audiences in the room using their phones or their own device and using the microphone on that device. Of course, I have to be careful about feedback, etc., but that is a really cool feature. But the Sennheiser is much more expensive, and this is a good choice, and I would go with the Dante version.
Alex?
Yeah, I second the Dante version. Don't put RCAs into your production unless you are really backed into a really hard corner. Don't put unbalanced audio into your balanced system or your Dante system if you don't have to.
All the head nods that were just on the panel behind the scenes here. Next question.
Brett in Western Australia up next. Does anyone know what criteria Zoom requires in order to allow a single user license business account subscription? At present, I'm constrained to the output resolution of my Pro account, but I'm collaborating with others who have 1080p.
Alex?
Trying to keep up with the Joneses. So I think that the primary thing is money. I think you just have to pay more. I don't know. I know they're slowly rolling out the ability to only own one business account. I think still in the United States, you need to own 10 to be able to go to the 1080p automatically. You can also get a sessions license. The sessions license will give you 1080p as well. So that's about, in the United States, that's $99 a month. But that's the less expensive way until they make the single business available, which we know folks here that are getting it in Canada that way, but I think it's slowly rolling out across the U.S. or across the world.
Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana is up next. Any reason the ATEM in the cloud could not use current ATEMs as control panels, maybe with a software update or field programmable gate array upgrade?
Noah?
It's the reason would be money. Basically, they want to sell you the advanced control panels or other ways to control the hardware, basically. I mean, I would love that. I know Alex and I have talked about this in the past of having even the ATEM minis control bigger switchers. Obviously, they've introduced control panels for this purpose. It would be great. I would love it. I completely agree. My guess would be it's a monetary thing.
Ronnie?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like Noah says, I'm pretty sure Blackmagic is planning, weird sound, to add some new hardware that is cloud has the cloud connectivity. So I'm looking forward to a bright future.
And Alex?
The panels aren't that hard for it to do. And in fact, I'd be surprised if when it comes out, the panels can't control the switcher from day one or very early on. Problem with the switchers, it's a little bit more than money. The ATEM minis, they only know what state they're in. So they're not designed to send out commands. And so, like, for instance, what MixEffect does is it looks at what state it is. It's constantly polling what state that they're in. But they're not designed to send something to another switcher to ask it to do something. And that would be a pretty large engineering problem for Blackmagic. So that, and I just don't think that it's in their roadmap. It is about money in the sense that they probably could do it if they're willing to put a bunch of resources behind it, but they're probably not interested. Like there's no upside for them to put in what would probably be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of programming resources to make something backwards compatible to the. If they do that, then they've decided that it's worth it for them. But it's you don't want to look at it like they're not artificially gating something off so that they can make more money. They're just not spending money. They're not willing to spend more money on something that's not going to make any money, which makes sense. But their control panels, I believe they mentioned that in the announcement, but maybe they didn't. Maybe I imagined it. But their control panels, I think, if they're not immediately available, I bet you they'll be very, very quickly will be available where you can plug it in, give it an IP, and it's, talk it away to the switcher in the cloud.
Courtney?
Yeah, I thought their new micro control panel, this one that's
that one should work.
Should work. I mean, one of the main problems, this is set up for 8 inputs or more, and the cloud only supports 4 inputs currently. I think it could always get better, but it depends on what it's running on in the cloud. So.
And Jason?
Yeah, I mean, it has MIDI, but anyone who's ever tried to program an ATEM knows that it's a little bit squirrely. Along those lines, it's also not designed to traverse the web, and that there's a little bit more involved with getting it to do that.
Well, if you have enjoyed our show, please go ahead and support Office Hours. You can do that by liking and subscribing to our channel. Feel free to volunteer. You can sign up at officehours.global/volunteer. And of course, you can also donate at officehours.global/donate. We are a nonprofit. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the old one. Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. If you have a media production startup, would this conference be the place to find an investor among the 600 plus expected? And he's got a link there to the Vancouver Web Summit.
Go ahead, Alex.
Excuse me. Might be a good setup. Might be a good place to go. I don't know if you'd find an investor there. I mean, I think that they sell it as that. Maybe Liberty knows more about it, but I don't think that going to one of these conferences and wandering around is probably the fastest way to find an investor.
So yes and no with that is definitely going into a conference like this. And this is under the banner of Web Summit. It used to be called Collision, but they've rebranded. What you want to do is ensure that you've already done the pre-work. So like Alex said, going there cold, it would be your rolling dice. But if you they've got a great app. So if you already go in and start creating meetings and curating your list of people that you want to speak to in advance, then yes, there's a possibility, because as our previous question where we spoke about relationships, this is, you may not land the investor at that event, but having FaceTime with them, showing them your product, your demo, letting them get to know, like, trust you, that's part of what you would want to do as a startup. So yes, it would work for you, but you've got to do a lot of pre-planning in advance. Next question.
Next question from Douglas Carmichael. Has anyone ever tried out a Snapdragon Windows laptop with production apps?
Jason?
No.
Next question.
Next question. We're moving quickly here. Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia. This weekend, I had a lot of issues with audio hijack and loopback. Great support in after hours. My question is still, is there a great solution, or is there a new product on the horizon?
Alex?
Yeah, as Mickey said, if you're running Sequoia, you're going to have trouble. And so it takes. So the problem is that what audio hijack specifically is trying to do and I guess what, not so much audio hijack, but some of the deeper stuff, the deeper routing that's being done really requires subsystems inside the Mac. And those have been changed a lot in Sequoia. And they, at the same time, Rogue Amoeba tried to make it easier for you to install things. And so they created a whole new way of doing it, which has destabilized the whole thing. And so a lot of people have had trouble with it, or having trouble with it inside of Sequoia. It's one of the main. It's not the main reason, but one of the many reasons that my main computer that I get on the show with is not on Sequoia. I only have one machine on Sequoia right now. I'm still allowing it to kind of sort itself out, and so maybe by 2026 I'll go up. So there's been enough in Sequoia for me to upgrade one machine so that I can do some things with it. But outside of that, I've been kind of staying on the sideline because they made a lot of changes that didn't make it more stable, but made it less stable, and the features weren't something that I was dying to have. So I think that if you're on Sequoia and you can go backwards, you might want to go backwards.
Which one are you? So just like you said, so what's the backwards ones that your other machines are on?
Everything that I have, and I always forget the name of everything, so I have to. It's the last version, so it's I am on Sonoma. So I'm on Sonoma 14.7.4, 14.7.4. And so I'm on Sonoma. I live in Sonoma, so I just stay in Sonoma. So I don't. Again, there hasn't been anything that I've gone, oh, I have to have that thing from the operating system, and I've had enough trouble with loopback specifically, and it's because, again, it's asking to do stuff that's pretty deep in the OS, and audio, has always been a challenge in upgrades for that. I don't know. I don't know if Pro Tools is allowed to go past Mojave yet. So it's I think that the audio pipelines have been the thing that have been the most fragile.
Ronnie?
Yeah, so I've had all those problems since the start of Sonoma. I'm currently at 15.2 Sonoma, and I'm using the 4.5 version of Audio Hijack. And knock on wood, it has been rock solid since I matched those two. But I've had discussion with a lot of people around, and it seems to be a little bit too much allergies between the versions of the different types. So you have to put a lot of testing into this and make sure it runs. But to answer the question a little bit more, no, there are no other software solutions that are as flexible and still, if it's a little bit unstable, as good as the Rogue Amoeba, unless you would like to go the hardware route and get an externalized mixer and other interfaces. So for now, it seems to be rock solid for me, but when I'm upgraded to the next version, it probably will fall apart again.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next. I don't see any ATEM in the cloud on the Blackmagic Design website. Was this a silent announcement at NAB?
Alex?
It's a beta, and it's announced. It's in their. It's in the second half of their announcement on that last Friday. So it's not a released product yet, which means I think it's going to be free. So to start with, at least. So, but it's packaged into an overall Blackmagic in the cloud solution that they're coming into, and this should. Anybody who thought that was going to be safe from Blackmagic should be very concerned about the fact that Blackmagic now is building not only just like a little toe in it, but they're really building all the infrastructure into the cloud. It should be a scary and ominous thing for a lot of folks that felt safe there.
Well, we've come to another wonderful end of our Office Hours Global. Just want to thank all of our producers for your phenomenal questions. And of course, our panelists without which this would not be possible to answer all these questions 7 days a week. And of course, our back end team for which this would not be possible. We have traveled 24 on the Talek Traversal, 24,000 miles, 44,000 kilometers. That is 216 million bananas for scale. To learn more about what we do here, head over to officehours.global, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
I think we're done.
You can use those bananas for scale, but don't
great
bananas with scales.
Welcome back, Liberty.
Yeah, it's great to have you, Liberty.
Yeah, like I said, I was getting really comfortable in that panelist seat.
And then everybody, they're like, and then we're gonna take away your program feed, and we're gonna welcome back.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks, y'all. I saw the comments. Everyone, all the producers, thanks for the love in the comments.
We missed you.
I don't know how we timed it out, Liberty, but we synced and it was great. So
there it is. Yes, we did. Wonderful to see you, Noah. Yeah.
Yeah, great to have you back, Noah.
Yeah,
good
sorry, it's been a while.
Yeah, that's right.
The setup looks great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good background.
Move and the rebuild took a little time, but I'm glad to have it all up. So
cool. Awesome. All right, see ya.
See you.
All right, y'all. Thanks back in. Thanks.